Okay, I am recording and oh, I need to set my timer. Hang on, I don't have my cell phone. Timer. I'll send you a private message if you are at 12 minutes. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay,
You can see my screen and hear me?
we can see your screen. We can hear you. All good.
All
You are
right.
set. Go ahead.
So we get to talk about how the United States government uses cryptography, and you probably have a guess that this is somewhat interesting and kind of surrounded in a mist of secrecy, and you would be half right. So today we're going to discuss how they use it, how they kind of distribute the standards that they do allow, and in the face of large-scale quantum computers, what they're doing to prepare and how they will hopefully not be completely destroyed by them. So, considering the cryptographic standards that the United States government uses, there are two main, very boring ways that they distribute these standards to the government, which is quite large. The first being FIPS, which are Federal Information Processing Standards, and NIST SPs, which are NIST special publications. We'll get to what NIST is in a second, but both of these are paper publications that you can find online. They're all published for, well, there seem to be a lot of them published online for public access. The ones that are unclassified, of course, you can read. They're all very long, very boring, but honestly, they're quite descriptive for someone even who doesn't know what the standard is describing. They start at a very low level, or high level, I guess would be a low level of understanding, and then they work all the way down to the very nitty details of how you would actually implement some of the standards. So uh, these are created by through a collaboration of NIST and the NSA, so the National Institute of Standards and Technology and the National Security Agency. So NIST is one that actually goes through and does a lot of the testing um, and writing of the documents, but they also collaborate with the NSA to make sure that the requirements they're putting forth are met, and also as far as developing the standards and relating them to what information that they can be used for. For example, what standards are allowed to be used on secret classified information versus top secret. They collaborate with the NSA for that. NIST also collaborates with um, other agencies, a couple in Canada even to do like testing of standards. So some specific algorithms, of course, they have to test them to see how strong they are so that they can allow them for use in certain applications. So NIST also facilitates that testing. And just to give you an idea of, I've probably read through, I don't know, 20, 30 some of these documents. So this is just an excerpt, 2 pages from a FIPS publication. This one specifically is for the digital signature standard. So they all start out like this on the left, nice and boring looking on the front. And then on the right here, you can see they go into great detail about some elliptic curve DSA generation algorithms. And this is not uncommon to see stuff that the actual implementation or how you would implement something written out in these FIPS. And just for comparison, here's NIST SP. And they're pretty similar, and they also reference each other a lot. So in the course of researching, you'll start reading one, and then it will refer you to another publication, which will refer you to another publication for more details, which also has more details in this other publication. Oh, by the way, this one was superseded by the one that was just published last week. So regarding hash functions, they outline three requirements for collision resistance, preimage resistance, and second preimage resistance. And for collision resistance, they say that it needs to have L divided by 2 bits of security. Now, they measure that the resistance is in bits, n bits, where the work to find the collision is going to be 2 raised to the n, and L is going to be the length. So the longer the hash function, the greater security it would have. For preimage resistance, it's the same thing, and second preimage is the same thing. Uh, so, except for it only needs to have L, well, it needs to have L bits of resistance instead of L divided by 2 bits of security. So SHA-128 is going to have 128 bits of resistance. And now these measurements, measured in bits, as you can see here for a bunch of different hashing algorithms, are how they actually go ahead and assign these to be applicable to be used in certain situations. So they can say, okay, this application needs to have at least 100 bits of security, and then you can go through and choose when you're developing an application, okay, I know that these hashes provide at least 100 bits of security, and then you know that you are able to use that and still be following the guidelines that are presented in these special publications. So since there are multiple measures of strength of a function, the overall strength of the function is determined by the weakest measure. So although SHA-1 provides 160 bits of pre-image resistance, its collision resistance is less than 80. So SHA-1 actually isn't going to be used or allowed to be used in a lot of applications in the government. Looking at some block cipher algorithms, we'll start with the data encryption standard, and this is not used anymore, and it was around from 1977 to 2005. A lot of these are kind of still used today, but only in legacy applications, so anything new written is not going to use DES. There's also the triple data encryption algorithm, which is an improvement upon DES, but that's going to be phased out around 2023, so it's at its end of life as well. An interesting algorithm was Skipjack, which was developed by the NSA and was largely classified until unclassified, and in 2010 they came down and were like, do not use this because it's so bad. So Skipjack was used for voice encryption on the Clipper chip, and the Clipper chip was just this little chip that was used in voice communication stuff, but there were some vulnerabilities, and it's funny because RSA, like the community behind RSA, actually fought a lot against Skipjack on the Clipper chip because of these vulnerabilities. So now we're to the Advanced Encryption Standard, AES, which we have talked about, and that is still in use today on as long as it's 128 to 256 bit, and in fact 128 bit I think is only approved for secret level classification data. So you can't, just because it's AES doesn't mean you can use it on all levels of classification of data. For digital signatures, we have the digital signature algorithm, which we did cover. And the thing is, in FIPS 186-5, it proposes its deprecation, so that's probably going to be phased out pretty soon here. There's also the elliptic curve digital signature algorithm, which we talked about and then promptly discussed how we were not going to be talking about it. And I will also not be talking about it because I do not know too much, but that's said to be around until about 2023, so it's still in use today. And then, of course, we also have RSA. So, yes, and RSA is also, depending on the use, somewhat phased out. So for the DSA, they actually specify LNN, where LNN are the bit lengths of P and Q. So if you're using a length of P being 1024 bits, then you gotta have a Q of at least, well, you have to have a Q of 160 bits, actually. They do say the wording in the document is should, and they say very clearly if should is put, that means you must. For ECDSA, obviously this is a algorithm based on elliptic curves versus finite fields. And this allows for shorter keys and faster computation than DSA and RSA. And you can see on the document on the right, they do specify all the parameters that you would use, and they have a couple different curves that you can use. But for each of those curves, they specify all the parameters for these curves. So you can't go and make your own, because with elliptic curve digital signature algorithms, the curve you use determines a lot of the strength. And if you use a weak curve, then you could potentially have some pretty large holes in the security of your algorithm. And that brings us to post-quantum cryptography. So, uh, right now, our cryptographic system is relatively strong, unless you're the NSA, in which case you've probably broken just about all of it. But for the rest of us out here, we're enjoying our life, and unfortunately, that's probably going to come to an end once large-scale quantum computers come around. And that used to be a dream, but people are now saying that it's pretty likely within 20 years. And the reason we have to start thinking about it now is the implementation of the public key cryptography system that we use today historically took about 20 years to fully implement. So if people are predicting within 20 years that we have large-scale quantum computers, it's imperative that we start now developing quantum cryptography algorithms. So um, NIST on the 30th of January last year released round two candidates for the post-quantum cryptography standard. Um, and this release contained 17 public key encryption and key establishment algorithms and 9 digital signature algorithms. And one of those was BIKE, the bit flipping key encapsulation. And they actually just released version 4 on the 1st of May, which I think is what, 6 days ago now? So this is, or 5 days ago. This is happening as we speak. So it's kind of neat to think about. But these quantum algorithms would be quantum computer safe and also safe against our current computers. So the algorithms we use today would be trivial to break, or yeah, trivial to break using large scale quantum computers that some people hope will be here in 20 years. Some people are dreading, but I think either way they're coming, and it's important that we start thinking about them. And the government has definitely started thinking about them, and they are releasing many, many documents. So, if you're interested in these types of things, you can search online for some FIPS and NIST special publications, and you will find more information than you ever wanted to know. And that is a very, very high level overview of how the government uses cryptography.
All right, questions for John?
I have a question actually. So with the post-quantum cryptography, did you look into all how they like verify that those algorithms like can't be broken by quantum computers? Did you look into that process at all?
They use
Because it
math.
overlapped with my topic too, but I didn't look into it much.
No, I did not look into it much. Um, but they do have a lot of the theory behind their algorithms in their publications. So I'm sure, I don't know enough to say anything, but I'm sure they are proving stuff using
Okay.
math.
Yeah, because I think the only thing I found, well, aside from not being dependent upon the discrete log problem, I think a lot of those algorithms they kind of keep candidates if they can't come up with a quantum algorithm to break them. At least that's what all I found. I just didn't know if you went deeper, but interesting.
Yeah, I did not dive too deeply into the actual discussion between those algorithms.
All right. Any other questions for John?
I haven't looked, or I don't know too much about like quantum computers, but like what's the difference between like a quantum computer and like computers we have now?
Watch my video.
Yeah, watch Elijah's video. I'll just say I'm no expert, obviously, but they're Elijah. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're basically completely different. You're not gonna in the future. You're not likely to have your quantum laptop. So this is an entirely different type of computer that is good at solving different problems than our current computers are. If that helps at all.
And
Yeah.
speaking of watching Elijah's presentation, all of those links are up on Moodle, and I'm going to put them in an email and send them out today as well. So you can go in and watch any of the other topics if you're needing to fill out the number of presentations that you have to watch, or if you're just interested in any of these because they are all well done and interest in other classmates stuff is helpful. Anything else? Anything quick for John? Otherwise, we will move on to the next one.
Yes. How do you spell your last name?
Sierra Echo Lima Lima.
All
Okay,
right, I will have you stop sharing your screen, please and thank you. And I will pause the recording.